Hello and welcome back for day 3 of Advent of Tess. Today we are working on a tessellation very similar to day 1, but we're going to put the twists on opposite sides of the paper. So only 3 show up on a side in each cluster. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this loop of 6 right around the center, and in the crease pattern, you can see that there's this alternating mountain valley pattern right around the central block of grid spacings, of grid lines. And the way that we're going to have this work is that we're going to use these lines and specifically the extensions of some of them to set up our first triangle twist. So what did I do here? I just moved quickly. I found the center of my tessellation, and if I'm doing this without the pen, I'm mentally saying, okay, one spacing out, I'm going to have this little hexagon where I'm alternating mountain and valley folds. Then one of these mountain folds is going to extend out, and the valley fold is going to extend down. And I'm going to have, in this case, a left-handed twist on this side of the paper. And I can lay that down and squash it. Now, since my twists are alternating on opposite sides of the paper, I need to flip over to fold my next twist. So when I flip over, the important thing is that I know that these two pleats are going around the central hexagon, and this one is going out to the edge. So I'm keeping track of where these two pleats are, and for simplicity, I'll take this pleat over to my right-hand side. And I know from either from looking at the photo, looking at my tessellation, or looking at the crease pattern, that I'm going to have the corner of the next twist right at the closed hole. Or another way of seeing it from the crease pattern is I'm going to have either one spacing from corner to corner of twist or 2 spacings from corner to center. One of those spacings is hidden, and so one space outside of the closed hole, I'll put in a 3-way intersection, and I'll make sure to keep the previous triangle closed. We always want to keep everything that we've already done in place. Then from there, I have one more pleat that I can use on this side in this loop. And so I'm going to put another identical twist, so coming out that one spacing from the closed hole. I'll put in a 3-way intersection, and again, not pulling out that triangle twist that we put in on the other side. And go ahead and squash. From there, I'll flip back and I'll keep this stair step of pleats on my right-hand side. From here, I have a bottom stair and a top stair. And I'll go ahead and use the top stair to create a new 3-way intersection, again, one spacing out from the closed hole. And this will create a pleat overlap here. So I've got one pleat going this way, one pleat going the other way. And I'll squash this twist. Then So I can't resolve my pleat overlap like I did the last one in the last two videos, because one twist is going to be on one side and one twist is going to be on the other. And this is where we're going to learn about something that I call a triangle wrap. So this is setting up a three-way intersection for a closed triangle twist and laying it flat, but doing it from the opposite side of the paper. And so when I open up this pleat overlap, I open first the latest pleat, the most recent pleat. And then before I even open anything else, I have this valley coming from the closed hole. And I'm going to pop down the mountain where the valley hits it. And I'm going to pass that valley through until it meets the valley of the mountain fold that I crossed. When those two valleys meet, that's going to be our three-way intersection on the other side. And so I'm going to have a third direction of valley coming out from that location. And now I return to this pleat that I still need to open to put in my mountain fold to complete the three-way intersection of mountains here on this side. So I've got a three-way intersection of mountains on this side, three-way intersection of valleys, and there that is going to become a triangle twist on the opposite side. And I've got this interesting structure emerging, which is that in order to lay flat, any intersection must have a difference of 2 between the number of mountains and number of valleys running into it. So if I have 3 valleys running in, I must have 1 mountain. Or 5, but in this case it's 1. And then I also have a 3-way intersection of mountains at this point 1 spacing away from the 3-way intersection of valleys. So let me zoom in so that's easily visible. So to go back and repeat, I had my pleat overlap. Then I opened the most recent pleat, found where the valley will go through, which is from the closed triangle hole. See that hole there? Because the next mountain is 1 spacing away. That valley runs over the existing mountain to meet that mountain's valley, where it forms a 3-way intersection of valleys and runs out to the edge of the paper. Then I can finalize my 3-way intersection of mountains up top and squash. And actually, I like this zoom level better, so we're going to stay here. And then when I flip over, I have this 3-way intersection waiting for me that I can then open and squash. So just like day 1, we're going to follow the same rule here of 2 close neighbors and 1 far neighbor. So my close neighbors have their corners at the closed hole of the neighbor. So the far neighbor needs to be 1 spacing further out. I'm going to go 2 spacings to find my next target grid intersection. Notice that I went 2 spacings out on a pleat that's coming from a twist on the other side. We always want to be folding our twists on pleats that are coming from twists on the other side for this tessellation. I can go ahead and splash that Then I'm going to flip the paper over because all the neighbors of this twist I would need to fold from the other side of the paper. So flipping over, I'm going to keep this twist in my right hand. And I see here that I'm at the top of a set of stairs that's both coming from twists on the other side. And this one is going to need a close neighbor. This one is going to need a far neighbor. So I'll go ahead and do the close neighbor here first. And again, the video is recorded for a reason. You can pause me at any point in time and go at your own pace. Then I need a far neighbor on this pleat. So my center here is going to be 2 spacings out, aka at this point right at the corner of the pleat overlap. So then my valley is going to start 1 spacing out from the closed hole, not at the closed hole. When I open my pleat, pop the valley down so it can meet the other valley and form a 3-way intersection of valleys. Then I form my 3-way intersection of mountains, make sure I still have my 3-way intersection of valleys. And with those 2 in place, everything else should really want to line up. The other key feature is when I form my 3-way intersection of valleys, each of those valleys has a corresponding mountain. So I'm always folding in pleats, never in single folds. Unless, of course, I'm folding a twist, which is composed of pleats. And then I'll continue around. I don't have anything here that I want to fold on this side because it's all coming from twists on this side. So I'll grab the pleat I'm interested in, flip over to the opposite side, and hey, there's this 3-way intersection that we forgot to open up. And I can go ahead and open that. In this tessellation, we're using all closed triangle twists, so it's straightforward to just open up those 3-way intersections. I'm going to need another near neighbor off of this closed triangle that's on the back because it already has 1 far neighbor. And so this pleat's at the top of the stairs. I'll go ahead and start there. Putting in my 3-way intersection. And then coming down again, this pleat's coming from the central cluster. It needs to be a far neighbor. And so my valley fold is going to start 1 spacing away from the closed hole instead of at the closed hole like we saw in the central cluster. With that, I can pop the valley down, find the 3-way intersection of valleys, then open my pleat coming from the center to find the 3-way intersection of mountains, 1 spacing out from that valley. Make sure that my 3rd pleat of the 3-way intersection of valleys has a neighboring mountain, and fold my closed triangle twist. Again, this maneuver is called a triangle wrap, and it does take a bit of time to master, but it will be very useful in the tessellations we'll be folding later on. So since we have a wrap, we can go ahead and flip over and open that out to fold a closed triangle twist on the back. And then we have these stair-step pleats again, where we're already sitting at the top of the stairs. And we know it needs to be a near neighbor because that twist on the back already has a far neighbor. And so I can go ahead and set up my twist closely spaced with the twist before. And we're going to do the same thing again of having our far neighbor from the central cluster. Valley starts one spacing out. It crosses the existing mountain. We form the three-way intersection of valleys. Then we open this pleat from the outside in to form a three-way intersection, centered two spacings out from the closed hole in the central cluster. And we collapse our triangle wrap, setting up our closed triangle twist, then flip over and open the wrap, open the three-way intersection into a closed triangle. And here we get to repeat again. I've got this stair step. I need a close neighbor. Putting that in causes a pleat overlap. And then the pleat overlap is going to be resolved with a far neighbor from the central cluster. So the center of this twist is going to be two spacings from the closed hole. And as I set this up, I'm looking for the three-way intersection of valleys. And we actually have two three-way intersections of mountains that are one spacing apart from each other. And then I can lay it back on my desk to squash. Once I've got that, I'll flip over, open the twist that we had set up, and I've got another stair step of pleats, this time with three. It's always going to be three when we get to the end of the loop. Or I should say it's always going to be one more than the other edges when we get to the end of the loop. And we're going to approach this in exactly the same way. I'm going to put in my near neighbor, then do my pleat overlap, open my pleat overlap, set up the far neighbor, make sure to set up the three-way intersection of valleys beneath the far neighbor. And this time that's going to cause another pleat overlap. And we can go ahead and deal with this pleat overlap now. This time, I need a near neighbor here, so my valley is going to come from the closed hole. I'm going to pop down, set up my three-way intersection of valleys, set up my three-way intersections of intersection of mountains above the valleys, and finally set up my closed triangle twist. Once I squash, I can then flip over to the other side and resolve both of my three-way intersections. So opening out and opening out. And you can see that this is quite a bit more of a challenge than folding all the twists on the same side of the paper, but also that our twists are further from the edge of the paper. They're one grid spacing in rather than having a corner right on the edge relative to our day one tessellation. So there are some benefits of having twists alternate sides. Tomorrow, we're going to do basically the same operation as from day one to today, where we're going to take day two's tessellation and have the twists alternate sides. So happy folding, and I'll see you then.